Recently, I had an experience with credit card fraud that caused so much unnecessary stress and anxiety. I spent hours on the phone and in chats with my credit card company. I had to get two different cards before the fraud stopped, and I was so worried about what was going to happen to my money in my bank account. And I sometimes have the fear that it's going to happen again, right? And that's why I'm so excited to introduce You Are the Healer's newest sponsor, Aura, an app for protecting online data and personal information. Cleaning up my information not only helps reduce the amount of spam I get, but it protects me from hackers who could use this information to help them access things like my social media accounts, bank accounts, and other sensitive information. Protecting yourself and your personal information is a form of self-care. I swear. Go to my sponsor, aura.com/healer to get a 14-day free trial and have peace of mind knowing your information is safe. Again, that's aura, aura.com/healer for your 2-week free trial. You Are the Healer is sponsored by BetterHelp. Therapy is mandatory because there's absolutely nothing wrong with seeking help. I think every person who walks this earth needs therapy, honestly. I'm stoked to be connected with BetterHelp to offer affordable and accessible therapy resources. The link is in my show notes, and you can also go to betterhelp.com/healer. That's better, HELP.com/healer. Now let's get into this episode. Welcome back to You Are the Healer. My name is Sydney Rinderknecht, and You Are the Healer is the mental health education and motivation podcast where I use my stories and my experiences as a psych nurse who has her own mental health journey to help you help yourselves. The goal of this podcast is to help you become your own greatest healer, and I'm here to provide you tools and stories to get you there. We're also decreasing stigma along the way. So thank you so much for showing up and listening to You Are the Healer. I think everyone who's supported the podcast, it literally means so much to me. Even if you listen to the episode and you text me or you message me, oh my gosh, this was so impactful in my life, that is so lovely to hear. So thank you to everyone who has supported the podcast, who has followed and subscribed and really left your reviews. Those are really awesome and great for spreading the word. Thank you guys so much for showing up. And today we're going to be talking about change and transformation. So in the beginning, we're going to get into how change makes us feel and some typical responses to change. And then we are going to get into how to change your relationship to change so that you can learn to accept it and embrace it and realize that it's a part of life that you have to come to terms with. And then we're going to talk about transformation, that true change of point A to point B, completely changing your inside, your outside, all of that. So let's dive into this episode. I'm super stoked. It's a season of metamorphosis. Of course, we're talking about change and transformation. Duh. Okay, so let's get into change. So unfortunately and fortunately, change is a part of life, whether you like it or not. Change is one of the few guarantees in this world, besides death, besides pain, taxes, and change. Those are like the few things that are guaranteed in this life. So understanding change and cultivating a healthy relationship with change is really imperative to your mental health, because change can make us feel a lot of different types of ways, okay? Change can really make us feel anxious. Change can make us feel like that loss of control, like all this stuff is changing and I can't do anything about it. It can feel really overwhelming when a lot of change is happening in your life. Change is a guarantee. And so, especially when you're in your 20s, I feel like everything can change. The place you're living can change. Your friend group can change. Your significant relationships. Your job can change. Your finances can change. Your routine. I mean, so many things change in life. And if we resist that change, it can cause really negative mental health symptoms. So I was talking about anxiety, overwhelm. Sometimes you can feel a huge sense of loss and grief when you have change, especially if you're grieving a relationship, if you're grieving, a job that maybe you didn't choose to leave, maybe they let you go. And so change can cause a lot of really negative mental health symptoms. It can feel uncomfortable. Like when you're trying something new, when things are different, it can feel really uncomfortable. It can cause a lot of stress. And so I want to talk about change because change is one of those areas of our life where we can really master it. We can learn to embrace it and decrease all of these negative mental health symptoms, because change is really can be an opportunity for growth. I mean, change is something that has to happen a lot of the time. Like, we can't, a lot of times staying the same is not an option. So that is why we're talking about change today. Change can also lead to a lot of resilience. And I've already talked about resilience in another episode. Check it out if that's something that you're interested in. But navigating change and being able to be adaptable and kind of roll with the punches, that is something that increases your resilience. And the more resilient you are, the more you can bounce back from different obstacles or things that get in your way, and the more stable and healthy your mental health is, because we have adversity. We have these things in our lives that just come up, and sometimes we can't control it at all. And the more able we are to have a nice relationship with change, bounce back from adversity, kind of go with the flow of life, the more we're going to be able to handle challenges that come our way. And that's really important to mental health, because sometimes you don't feel capable of handling what's on your plate, and that can lead to really dangerous situations. And so embracing change can lead to resilience, which is such a key to mental health. Change also is a huge, huge, huge opportunity. Change is an opportunity for growing and developing and bettering yourself. It's really hard to better yourself without changing some areas of your life. And so, yes, change can be something that is stressful and anxiety inducing and, oh God, just so uncomfortable. But change is also that thing that drives us, that allows us to grow. It allows us to develop ourselves, to have better habits, to be a better person. And so change, it's unavoidable, first of all, but it's also imperative, because it's happening, right? And so how can we change our relationship with change and embrace it? Because it's an inevitable part of life. And if you can't be enthusiastic about change, then start with acceptance. So how do we accept change? All it takes is a simple reframe, especially if you know, okay, I have a really hard time with change, I resist it a lot. Start viewing change as an opportunity rather than a threat. So what that means is change is something that opens the door for endless possibilities. Okay, endless. Like, if there's anything you're unhappy with in your life, change is that pathway to opening up something new, to living in a different way, to being around different people, to being happier, healthier. Whatever you want, change is kind of how you get there, right? So change is an opportunity instead of this threat, right? Because, and this is, I talked a little bit about it in the last episode, but sometimes when things are new, like that uncertainty, that uncomfortability, it feels, the fear is so intense. It's that fear of the unknown that keeps us afraid of change, because we like knowing, we like being familiar in our environments as humans. That's physiologically how we feel safe, right? And so if things are changing around you, your brain is literally firing like, oh my gosh, this is unfamiliar, this feels unsafe. But change is not a threat. Change is a part of life, right? And so viewing it as an opportunity, and really also even taking a minute and just saying, like, it's okay that I'm scared. It's okay that I'm stressed out because everything in my life is changing. That's a normal reaction. So I think before you even reframe, validating your experience and really sitting with yourself and saying, okay, I feel really, really scared right now. And that's okay, because this situation in my life is changing, and it's okay to be scared. And just taking that little moment to yourself and really like parenting yourself, giving yourself that nourishment, that validation, that goes a really long way. So you're going to validate yourself, and then what you're going to do is change your perspective so that you view change as an opportunity. And really, when you view it as an opportunity, that gets really exciting, because a lot of times change is a blessing in disguise. I cannot think of, I have so many examples in my head of when something changed and initially I was really, really upset, and in hindsight I was like, oh, thank God that changed. Like, oh my goodness. I mean, the first thing that comes to my mind is a breakup I experienced like 2 years ago, basically. At the time, I was devastated. I was gutted. I was like, I cannot believe this entire outcome of my life is going to be different. I had planned so many details of my future with this person, and it all just kind of fell apart. And so all of that change was really, really unsettling. It was very uncomfortable. A lot of grief, a lot of loss with that change. But now I'm like, oh my God, thank God that happened, because that moment allowed for a complete transformation of myself. I feel like I'm a completely different person. Like, I wouldn't even recognize the version of me that went through that breakup 2 years ago. And the change was an opportunity to allow for this transformation, to allow for this growth. And so sometimes when we're experiencing a change, it's like all you want to do is hold on and be like, no, 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 I want this to stay the same. Like, please, please, please. But learning, okay, this is an opportunity. Like, who knows what's going to come out of this? That can go a really, really long way. And I also want to say that sometimes we feel like we have to act a certain type of way because of how we've been conditioned in society. We oftentimes, it doesn't even feel like we have a choice. It's like you go to high school, you go to college, you graduate, you start dating, you get married, you have kids. That almost feels like the only way that you can exist in society. And I want to remind you, as we talk about change, because we'll be talking about ways that we can change our own lives, that you are in control. You decide how you act. You decide how you show up. You decide all of the choices in your life. And I know sometimes it feels like we have this conditioning and we have to be a certain way, but the nice thing about change is you're in control of what you do. You're in control of your actions, you're in control of your behaviors, and so you can decide for yourself, okay, what do I want to do? What is best for me? And really, a big part of this is trusting your inner knowing, trusting your intuition. Like, you know yourself better than anybody else. I say this all the freaking time. You know yourself better than anybody else. And so you are the only person that can adequately decide what you're going to do with your life. If you want to quit your job and move to a random country because that's going to light you up, you know better than anybody else what that's going to do for you. If you let other people tell you how to live your life, you are going to be very, very deeply unhappy because your inner knowing knows best, right? And if you're not listening to that, and if you're listening to all these external things around you, what you should be doing, then you're betraying yourself and you're going to feel that internal discourse, okay? Everyone has a different dream on their heart, okay? And some people's dreams look like creating a family. Some people's dreams look like writing a book. Some people's dreams look like playing professional sports. Literally, whatever it is for you, you have this dream in your heart for a reason. The universe picked you, okay? And if you are not listening to that dream, it's going to cause these uncomfortable feelings like depression and hopelessness and confusion. And I always find that when you're not listening to your intuition, things just get harder. I don't know if anyone's ever experienced a moment where you know better, but you're like, I'm just going to see this through. I'm just going to play it out and see how this goes. Even though you know, like, you have this deeper knowing that's like, this isn't the way to go. It's almost like whenever you ignore your intuition, all the external circumstances get louder and painful and just more uncomfortable and intense until you're like, oh, okay, I'm actually going to listen to my intuition now. So as we talk about change, I want to remind you guys, trust your inner knowing. You have a literal compass inside of you that points to what is going to fulfill you, that points to that happiness, that dream on your heart. And nobody else has that information but you. Okay, so when we talk about implementing different changes or transforming yourself and things like that, trust where your heart is leading you, because it's leading you there for a reason. And it's okay if it doesn't look like other people's journeys. Mine doesn't look like other people's journeys right now. And sometimes I have a really, really hard time accepting that, right? I totally feel this pressure to be living my life a certain type of way. And that's, the dream of my heart doesn't look like a traditional life at all. Like, at all. Honestly, right now, the idea of marriage and kids feels more of a prison than anything else. And I just have to constantly remind myself that it's okay that my dream looks different. When I'm talking about change, I'm talking about those little, tiny, incremental changes in your behavior that over time can lead to transformation. So when we think of change, we think of something that could even be reversible. We think of those really like small, minute little changes. And then we're talking about transformation, we're thinking more of like a complete shift in your being. So as we're talking about change, it's important to note that change is not linear. And when I'm conceptualizing this, a story that comes to mind is when I was in a really low point of my mental health, I was actively self harming. And I was trying to change that behavior because I knew that I was embarrassed by it. I felt a lot of shame. I didn't want to be doing it, but I also just didn't know any way to make myself feel better that was as effective as self harming. And so when I decided to start making changes to stop self harming, it wasn't, I decided and then every day got easier and easier. Change is something that's not linear. And some days it might feel really, really easy to substitute a behavior, and some days it might feel really, really hard. And I want to talk for a second about relapsing. Relapsing is absolutely a thing on your healing journey. And relapsing has to do with when you're trying to implement some type of change, right? So for me, it was cutting myself. I mean, it sounds pretty like intense to even say now because it has been so many years, but I actively used to self-harm, and so I just knew that that wasn't a healthy coping skill. And if you're in that space right now, I send you so much love and support. It is a really, really dark place to be, and I just want to remind you that you will get to where you're supposed to be. You will find healing, you will find happiness, and it is a process, and some days are harder than others. Your healing journey is not just this uphill graph. It's not linear, okay? Sometimes it's like a freaking roller coaster. One day you might feel completely able to curb some unhealthy behavior like self-harm or drinking or I don't even know, doing whatever you do that you want to move away from. Some days it might feel really easy, and other days you might slip up and you might do that thing again, and that's okay. Relapse happens. Relapse is a part of recovery from anything, and it's okay if that happens. And it's also okay that some days are harder than others. That's just an unfortunate reality. And just give yourself grace and compassion as you navigate changing any behavior. I mean, this could look like eating healthier, right? Some days you might be like, I'm craving that salad. Those fruits and vegetables look so good to me right now. And then other times you might be like, I need a Chick-fil-A milkshake or I'm gonna scream, right? So just give yourself grace. Know that healing and recovery and really the whole process of life isn't linear. It's not going to follow this predicted pattern. Things change. It can be unpredictable, and really just give yourself grace and roll with the punches. And another thing to note is that literally everything is temporary. Everything is temporary. And that could be like everything is temporary, or like everything is temporary. It totally just depends on how you look at it. I think now I'm much more leaning towards, oh my gosh, everything is temporary. Let's savor the good and know that anytime something uncomfortable or negative or not great happens, oh my god, it's temporary. Great news, right? So as you're navigating change, as things can kind of come and go and be a little bit uncomfortable, know that this is temporary. It's not always going to be this hard. Some days it might be harder, but things change. That is a guarantee, right? And so then you can really start to practice this, love from a place of non-attachment. And that's a huge thing in Buddhism. That's like its own pillar, is non-attachment, because everything changes, everything is temporary. And so if you know that everything's temporary, you're not going to attach yourself to any people or outcomes because you know that they're going to change and they're not always going to last. And so it's like knowing everything is temporary and fleeting and fading, and also allowing yourself to be present with people and things and places and love them anyways. Love regardless of how long it's going to last. Love regardless of the pain and suffering that might happen. It's temporary. Life comes in waves, and sometimes it's glorious and sometimes it's grief, and the entire cycle of this is, honestly, it's beautiful. And sometimes, yes, it can be like, why does it have to be this way? Why can't it just be rainbows and sunshines and unicorns all the time? But unfortunately, that's not a life that we are promised. That's not a life that at least I've figured out how to get to. And so part of life is really just navigating these waves of highs and lows and everything in between, because it's all temporary, it's all coming and it's all going. And really just to savor each moment as it comes. I think that's a huge, huge, huge thing that has helped me on my mental health, is really just that present moment awareness and just being with things that are good as they're good. And then whenever things are really hard, knowing, okay, this is temporary, this is going to pass too. Now we're going to be talking about transformation. So this is that long-term change, that lasting change, that something that's permanent, or that like fundamental shift in your being. When we're talking about the season of metamorphosis, transformation is the caterpillar is now a butterfly. You can't even recognize it's completely different now. It moves differently. It looks differently, right? And so transformation is that profound sense of growth and development. It's almost like once you have a transformation, like you can't go back. It's like transformation is one of those things that happens gradually over time, and it's like this shift. It's like you can no longer operate how you used to operate because you are fundamentally different now. And so when we're talking about transformation and mental health, I mean, it's really about visualizing who you want to be, visualizing the life that you want to have. And transformation is how we're getting from where we are to where we want to be. And I also want to have a caveat on saying, like, there's so much peace that comes from accepting where you currently are. I'm currently having like this big internal debate of like, I love manifesting and I'm great at it and I think it's really, really cool. But at the same time, I think that if you focus all of your energy on where can my life be, and super future based, and like, I need this thing, I need this next thing, and I'm gonna have this dream career, it almost robs the current moment of its joy and its wonderfulness. So both can be true at the same time. You know, dreaming of a better life for yourself can be awesome, and it's important to also have gratitude for where you're at currently, because what you appreciate appreciates, right? If you, like, the first thing that came to my mind is I love how I sleep. Man, I sleep good, okay? And the more that I appreciate that, the more that I take a second, I say like, oh, I'm so grateful that I'm a good sleeper. I'm so grateful that I feel rested and I have a good sleep routine. Then my sleep will get better and better and better. And so that's kind of what I mean when I say what you appreciate appreciates, because the things that you pay attention to grow, because that's just how life works. And so when we're talking about transformation, yes, it's okay. And I encourage you to be grateful and present with your life now. And also, when we're talking about mental health, it's usually because we want to feel better. We want to be at this next part of our journey where things feel easy, where they come natural, where we're not mean to ourselves, where, you know, we have more peace than anxiety, and when we have more joy than depression, right? So it's helpful to know what we're working towards, right? And so when we're thinking of transformation, what I really want you to do is to think about the version that you want to be. Think about the life that you want to have. And get as specific as possible, and also know that the sky is the limit, which there actually is no limit. So scratch the sky is the limit. You can dream as big as you can. I have this delusion that I like to believe that if it's a thought in your head, that exists out there somewhere. So if you've had this wild dream to quit your job and be a skydive instructor in Peru, that's out there. That's an option for you because you've even had it as a thought, okay? So dream as big as you want. Dream as big as you can. There literally is no limit to your potential. I think that a lot of society and maybe other people really kind of make us feel like the world is not our oyster, when life happens for us. We can choose the life that we want to live. Like, you forget that there is the power of choice, okay? And so while we're talking about change and things that are kind of inevitable and sometimes they just happen to us, it's helpful to know that you have power in your life. You can literally make your life whatever you want it to be. And that's kind of why I wanted to talk about this in transformation, is because transformation is how we get there, right? And so picture your future self. Picture what clothes does your future self wear? How much money do they make? What does their bank account look like? And get specific. What does their savings look like? What car does your dream version of yourself drive? And really think about, like, in a perfect world, if you could have everything you've ever wanted, what would your life look like? I'm like, man, I would drive a hot pink Mercedes Sprinter van, and I would live on the road, but somehow still have this insane sense of community and togetherness and totally feel like connected to everybody. And my dream self flies first class. I've already determined that. And when you're thinking about who you want to become, this life, this dream with no limits in a perfect world, if everything was handed to you, what it would look like, the key part of this is acting like you are this person. And this is like, has a smidgen of like fake it till you make it, but it's really like, okay, I know that the future, the highest version of me, the version that I want to be, she flies first class. So when I go to the airport, if you know me in my personal life, this is like something I'm passionate about. I look nice, okay? When I'm at the airport, yes, I'm in a comfortable outfit. I look nice. First of all, you never know who you're going to meet at the airport. That's its own caveat. But also, like, when I think of this dream version of me, I fly first class because I am being flown out to do keynote speeches. I'm being flown out to be on other people's podcasts. I'm doing a book tour, right? And so I need to look good because I'm in business mode. You have no idea who you're going to meet when you're on the road, right? And you don't want to be looking bummy in sweatpants. No. So I always say, I'm like, your airport outfit matters, okay? Start acting like it. And I feel that way because this dream version of my life is someone who is doing important business with her passion at the airport, right? I'm flying to all these places. And so that's why, I know this is a tangent, but that's why now currently I dress nicely to the airport because I'm acting as if I am that version of myself already. It's a little brain hack, if you will, right? And so let's say a goal you have, a transformation you want to have is you want to lose weight. And I want to caveat and say that you are absolutely phenomenal as you are, and losing weight does not make you more valuable as a person. However, sometimes losing weight can be the thing that it's like driving your physical health, right? You want to be physically healthier. You want to be able to move your body more, right? So let's say the goal that you have is to lose weight or to be physically healthy, right? So you are going to act as if you already are physically healthy. What does this version of you do? What is their workout routine? What clothes do they wear? Right? And so you're going to trick your brain by acting as if this thing that you want, this life that you want to have, has already happened. How does this person show up for you? How does this person go about the world? And then you can start implementing those little changes of acting like this person that you want to be. And then slowly those changes over time, before you know it, you're going to be like, oh my gosh, I'm completely different. Like I've completely transformed. And the little changes is what gets you there. Another thing with transformation, with completely changing literally like the composition of who you are, right? It can be your values change. It can be like literally all of your habits change. I think of like who I used to be when I was in college, just binge drinking all the time, kind of being an asshole to people, chronically in pain, headaches, stomach aches, all of this stuff. I think of who I am now, completely transformed. I no longer have that pain. I no longer drink at all. I'd like to think I'm no longer an asshole, but I know I have my moments, so working on that transformation. And so when we're talking about transformation, when we have a goal and we want to get to another place, our language is so important. It determines what happens with the words that we use. I think the words we use are so freaking powerful. I know from firsthand experience myself, my thoughts used to be very, very horrible about myself and super negative, and I've changed that, and now I live completely different because I've changed the thoughts. If you want to hear more about how your thoughts create your reality and why the language that we use is so important and how that shows up, listen to my episode on neuroplasticity, there it is. And I talk about really like the power of your words and how it literally creates your reality and how changing your words can change the pathways in your brain and completely change your mental health. That's a tangent for another story. But when we're talking about change, language totally matters. Okay, I'm going to use an example from my own life that is hard because I don't even necessarily want to change this, but I feel like it'd be healthier if I did. I drink soda now. Unfortunately, when I stopped drinking alcohol, I developed a soda habit because when I was going out to the club, I didn't want to not have a drink, so I'd have a little Sprite or a Shirley Temple or a Coke, And now I like fiend for soda, which I used to not do. So that is something that I would like to change. I don't necessarily want to, but I would, part of me does. If I were to tell myself, I can't stop drinking soda, that's literally going to be my reality, and I'm not going to be able to stop. Oh my gosh, it's going to be so hard to cut out soda. I'm going to experience that, right? Whereas if you change your language, if you say, like, I can do this, this is going to be easy. I'm going to crush this goal. Then you're likely to actually succeed based on the language that you use. Because the stories that we tell ourselves, the words that we say, have so much influence in our lives. And stories really dictate our reality. So if you have this belief, or you have this story, oh my gosh, nothing ever works out for me. First of all, cancel, clear, delete, I don't want that. But like, what a garbage thought. If you're actively saying out loud, oh my gosh, I'm just like nothing ever works out for me. I'm like so unlucky. Like I just have the worst luck ever. You will experience that more and more the more that you say that. And the stories that we have in our brains, I mean, I have so many stories that I'm actively working through, but they literally dictate our reality and change the course of our lives and all the experiences we have based on the stories that we tell ourselves. So when you're wanting to implement change, when you're wanting to transform yourself, it's really important that you curb those negative limitations, those stories, those thoughts. You curb them, because if you don't, you likely won't reach your goal. And if you do, then you'll feel that much better. So I do want to talk and really emphasize that the words we say matters, and the stories that we tell ourselves matters, the beliefs that we have matter. And what's really cool about the brain is you can change all of that. You have the power and the tools and the resources to rewire your brain, to change your thoughts, to change the stories that you tell yourself. And it does take effort, especially if they're really, really ingrained. But over time, you can change your self-talk. You can change your limitations. You can change so much about your life. And I just want to reiterate that, like, you are in control of your life. You are in control of your reality. And I just really want to encourage you that you have everything you need inside of yourself. I honestly feel like the biggest barrier is believing in yourself. I know that that's a big barrier for me. It's like, I have these dreams, man, and they are so freaking big. And sometimes I'm like, but why me? Why am I the one that gets to live this like super, super cool life? And like, we really are our own critics in a lot of ways. And we can control how we talk to ourselves. So like, I know that I can be my own inner critic, so I can actively choose to rewire my brain, to say affirmations, to find better beliefs, to find better thoughts, and then live a life in alignment with that dream version of myself, with who I actually want to be, and then have that much, like, really just reap the benefits of that, right? Like, all these, like, fruits of my labor, like being peaceful and having a community and having all these friends and these great relationships in my life. Like, you have the keys to the life that you want. When we're talking about change too, it's important to consider, what is your motivation for wanting this change? What is your why? And I really encourage you to find your why. Find the reason that's driving you to make this change. Because whenever you feel unmotivated, which is going to happen, you can keep going back to that why. And when I think of finding my why, I really think of this podcast, because sometimes my motivation waxes and wanes. Sometimes my imposter syndrome gets the best of me. And my why is so vastly important that drives me to record even when I don't feel like recording. My why for this podcast is because this world needs healing, and I have information and the resources and the bandwidth to help heal the world. And so whenever I'm not feeling like recording or posting, or I'm like, man, does anyone even listen to this podcast? I'm like, my why is to literally heal the world. So like, that feels a lot more important than like not really feeling up to recording right now. And so I encourage you, when you think of change, find your why, find that intrinsic motivation. So let's say you want to be more active, you want to be more physically fit by like exercising, and really get under that, because, okay, sure, I want to be healthier. Why do you want to be healthier? So I can live longer. Okay, why do you want to live longer? So I can have as much time with my grandkids as possible, right? That's your why. And that, when you get down to the bottom of like, okay, but why? When you find that core reason, that's what's going to motivate you when you don't feel like showing up. Finding that true intrinsic motivation, that is going to get you to show up for yourself and be successful. So I encourage you to find your why. And I will leave you with this last piece of advice that God has been a motto in my life, especially these last couple of years, is do it scared. It's okay to be scared. It's okay to have fear, especially when you're trying new things, when you're going into unknown situations. It's okay to be scared, but do not let that fear keep you paralyzed. Do not. I can speak for so much experience. I had so much fear when I started this podcast. I had so much fear when I left my last relationship, but I knew that it was what I was supposed to do, and so I did it scared. And I encourage you with any change that you're implementing in your life, with anything. I mean, so much can happen in this life, and it's okay to be scared, but it's not okay to let that fear paralyze you. So feel the fear, acknowledge it, say, hey, it's okay to be scared. That's all right. I'm not going to let this fear keep me from playing the game. I think that's like such a good quote from the Cinderella story. Don't let the fear of striking out keep you from playing the game. Okay? So find your why and do it scared. Okay, that is the end of this episode. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed. We talked about change. We talked about some things that change makes us feel. We talked about how change can really be an opportunity instead of a threat. We talked about how you have a lot more choice in your life, how healing isn't linear, how everything is temporary. We talked about transformation and how you can visualize the life that you want and go out and live it by changing your stories, by changing the words that you use, and finding that motivation and doing it scared. Thank you for listening to You Are the Healer. I love each and every one of you so dearly, and it warms my heart so much to know that you guys are showing up for yourselves. I think of all of the healing resources that people get from this podcast, and then maybe they implement those behaviors or the things that they've learned, and then that change is like a snowball effect into this world. Like, that is so meaningful to me, and I really appreciate all of you for listening to a healing message to help heal yourselves, because this world needs so much healing. You can support me with all of the links in the show notes. I'm also doing nurse coaching, so I need a couple more pro bono clients. So if you want to be coached by me for free, which is literally never going to happen again in this lifetime, besides when I'm in school for coaching, click the link in the show notes to fill out my pre-coaching questionnaire. Coaching basically looks like I am your one-on-one nurse coach, helping you with any lifestyle, holistic health modifications, and I really specialize in mental health. So if you want to like smash some limiting beliefs you have, if you want to like completely feel so much better, then maybe fill out that form. But until next time, may you be well, and I love you so much.